Hi folks, Rick here. All right, it is March 23rd. We've got Dan Mumm, real estate extraordinaire. You guys want to hear more from him than me, I know that. So we're going to get right into it. So Dan, in today's market, today's topic is prospecting.
Sure.
So in today's market, with what we got going on with this crazy coronavirus, all right, let's start with Sphere. How are you working with your Sphere today?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we just talked about the Sphere being the most important thing to work right now, given the circumstances and conditions with what's going on. So the first thing I think is that people need a calming force in their life right now, more than any other time, I would say, ever. And that's really what we get paid to do. I always tell people that as realtors, that's really what we get paid to do, is act as an emotional buffer between buyers and sellers.
Right.
And what we don't want to do is insert more emotion and drama and energy into the marketplace. We want to help people calm them down.
Right.
So the first thing that we need to do is make sure we're communicating with our clients in our Sphere. I would be making contact with all of them right now. Phone calls specifically, not just texting, not just emailing. We'll talk about some of that stuff. But I think it's really, really important that you talk to people in your Sphere and you call them on the phone, because there are some people who still need our help.
Right.
And we'll talk too about, I don't know if you want to get to that later, but a lot of agents ask me, well, what do you say, Dan, when people say, well, I'm not, I don't want to do anything because I don't want people in my house, or I don't want to list my house. How do you handle that? And there's no quick and easy solution to that, right? You can't say these magic words and then they say, okay, I'll list my house. It doesn't work that way. It's the same thing like we talked about with that week between Christmas and New Year's, where there's really not a lot of people moving. There are still some people that move, but there's not a lot. So the whole idea is just like, this is like an exaggerated form of that time frame.
Yeah.
And what we do in that time frame is, well, the first thing is find out about their motivation. Because if someone's really, really motivated enough, if they're strongly motivated, they'll still need to move. And I still have people now that I'm talking to that are buying and selling, the most motivated ones. And if they're not at that point, then what your goal should be is to start building relationships as much as possible now, start collecting these leads as much as you possibly can. And then when things clear up 30, 60, 90 days, who knows, no one knows how long this will really last, but at some point it will end.
Right.
And you want to be the person who has those relationships when all this clears up.
Right, and like a pipeline, but I like the word relationship better because that way you can get into action. Now, just so you know, Dan is in Nevada, for some of you who may not know that, which in Nevada, the governor has decided that we are essential, so we're not in the non-essential category, but we have certain guidelines and things that we need to do here. California's different. California's a little tighter on their stringence, and we're going to go through that tomorrow with Mark. And then Arizona is kind of the most wide open as far as the 3 states that we're in. So, but everything that Dan just mentioned as far as talking to people, staying in touch, having conversations, being that calming force, as he said, you can do.
And don't forget with your Sphere too, I wanted to add this before we move on to the next one. Don't forget with your Sphere that you're not the only realtor that they talk to in most cases. We liked that to be the case. We would like that to be true, but usually most people know more than one realtor. So don't forget that if you're out there talking to people now you will be the only person talking to them, because most people in general are operating from a place of fear and scarcity, and they're worried and they're anxious. So most agents aren't working. If you're the person talking to your Sphere right now, they're going to remember that because you're the only one out there talking to them. So it's a huge
and it's funny because you mentioned that week between Christmas and this is very true. But for me, being from New England, that was January, February, and half of March.
Right.
So, and that's all I did. I over prospected those months to fill the pipeline because, and like Dan was saying, you have to be sensitive to what's going on. I've talked to agents in the last 2 weeks, Arizona, and you have some sellers that will say, well, you're still showing my house, right? Because they need to sell. We can't put a financial impact on them. And then you have some people that can't talk about anything but this, and you'll have everybody in between. So one of the things I talked about on Thursday with Mark is you have to exercise, I would call it extreme versatility right now.
Yeah,
do you agree?
Agreed.
And if there's ever been a time that you can exercise that or work on it, it's now. Any other thoughts on Sphere?
No, I would say the most important thing is don't just rely on social media, texting, and emailing because you assume everyone will see that message. You'll really, really stand out by calling right now. So I'd recommend doing that.
Yeah, the human voice is unbelievably important. You can't, by the way, we haven't mentioned this yet. Don't go door knocking right now, at least even though I would love to, but don't go out
Probably
there
not
because
the best idea.
People will freak, especially in California, you definitely cannot do it.
Yeah, and actually another thing with this too, something that's helped me is, and this should kind of be common sense, but now you have the perfect excuse to call people, because you should honestly be trying to help people in a time like this anyway, right? So it's very easy to come from a place of service and just check in on people and say, I know you and Mark talked about this, and it's a good, if you've been scared to call someone, or you're just hesitant, you like texting, you're a little bit nervous about calling your sphere, now you have the perfect excuse. It's like, this is exactly what you should be doing, is reaching out to people that you haven't talked to in a while to see if they need help. And it's just a very easy, natural, it's one of those things where the right thing to do and the right thing for your business are exactly the same thing.
Right, it's a golden rule right now, yeah. And that's very important. Check in. Don't start with real estate, obviously. That's what Dan is saying. Start with how's it going. And if you have elderly people that could probably use a little help at the grocery, I know a lot of agents that are actually helping out. People will, I mean, that's a huge thing to do right now.
Yep.
Any other thoughts on Sphere before we move on?
No.
Because we want to cover the different types of prospecting right now. Do you have a question?
What do you say when you're calling your sphere?
What do you say when you're calling your Sphere right now?
Well, the first thing, my coach actually gave me an exact script that I use for the current situation. And the first thing I do is just check on them, not in a negative way, not like, hey, how are you dealing with all this stress and uncertainty and anxiety going on? No, it's just a general check-in. Like, hey, John, I haven't spoken with you in a while. I just want to check in, see how you were doing. And then also I'd be prepared with some type of market stats in case it does come up, because as you and Mark talked about, I'm not leading into the conversation with this, but they'll naturally probably ask me, like, a lot of people are really wondering what's going on with the real estate market, and you need to have answers for that. And it wouldn't just be all rose-colored glasses, but I would have specific statistics. Hey, in the last, just so you know, John or Jane, in the last 7 days, there's still been X number of houses that have come on the market, X number of houses that have sold. So if you or if you know anyone who still needs to, you know, we're still working right now.
Right.
I would just be prepared for that too. But yeah, the introduction of the call is just a very quick and simple, hey, I'm just checking in, seeing how you're doing.
I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, good. Any other questions over there? Okay, I thought, did we go upside down for a minute over there, and what was happening? Oh, and by the way, what Dan is talking about is your voice is, you can't do it face to face, so you can only do it over the phone. And what we're doing right now is a close second. So you mentioned social media. If you're gonna use social media today, use video. Right? That's the way to go today, definitely. Okay, so now we've talked about our sphere. What about expireds right now?
Yeah, so kind of along the same lines, no one is really talking to them. And there's people that need help. And it's actually unfortunate. There's people out there that really need help that aren't getting it because a lot of agents aren't working. And I get certain markets you can't work to some
California,
degree. But I think in any market, you're still allowed to call people, right? There'd be no reason not to do that. So
you might have to dial 3 times because the lines are getting kind of bogged up.
Right. So yeah, I've just noticed personally, I've still been calling the expires exactly the same way I normally would. You hear a lot of, well, we're waiting to see what happens with this situation. But surprisingly, it's not a crazy amount. Like most people would expect right now that everyone would say that. Like everyone would say, oh, I'm not doing anything because of this. But when you actually talk to people, not everyone's really thinking that way. There's still some people that just like, they weren't happy with their agent because something went wrong and they still need to sell. I just had this happen last week where we're selling a condo. He asked me, he's like, hey, do you think we'll still be able to show it? I said, yeah, we'll just make sure the house is vacant, so it's not really an issue. And we're not going to do any open houses, but it won't be an issue.
Right.
So yeah, there's still
vacant houses. I bet you a lot of them are going to sell right now. Just thinking that this weekend.
Yep. And there's a lot of sellers right now. Sellers who are not also buying are trying to get out of the market because there is a lot of uncertainty. Right. So if you're a seller who is thinking about selling maybe in the next year or so, and you're not buying another property, well, now you're thinking, well, I got to get out now because a lot of people are scared. Although I don't think there's going to be a huge major downturn. I mean, who knows? But sellers are kind of worried, and that motivates them. So there's a lot of really motivated sellers to talk to. Now, the strategy in general, though, you have to understand what's going on. You have to understand a lot of cases you're just going to be holding on to leads. You're starting to build relationships and just try and kind of lock that in for the next 30 or 60 days. Right. But you will get a few here and there that you'll be able to sign right away.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being relocated to Seattle in July, okay, and that's still happening. Well, if I'm still having a baby in September. There are people that are still going to be doing something. And I'm going to tell you, I've talked to a few agents this week that for those particular people, if they feel like you're too engulfed by what's going on, they're going to have an issue with that. Yep. So you're going to find people that have to do something. You're going to have people that can't talk about anything but the coronavirus, and you're going to find everybody in between. And once again, it's time to exercise versatility.
Yep, completely agree.
All right, cool. So expire. So even if you're in California and you can't see them this week, you can see them in 3 weeks, maybe, whatever it is. And I'm sure you're hearing, you're still working during this,
Right.
which is really good.
Yeah.
Because look, I understand a lot of you at home with your families, and you should be. Okay, it's a good time to get together, and it's a safe thing. It's a safe thing. It's the right thing to do, and it's what our government's telling us to do. Number one, but at the same time, it doesn't mean you can't line up people 2, 3, 4 weeks out, whatever. And even if that changes, and that 2 weeks can't be 2 weeks, it has to be 3. You're going to stay in touch with them and so forth. So just build up that pipeline. You have a tremendous time to build momentum, even when you can't physically go out there in some cases.
Yeah, try and act. I would recommend that you try and act as close to normal as possible when it comes to your sales process. So, with the exception of obviously meeting with people face to face,
Right.
but outside of that, yeah, set an appointment for 30 days from now. Send them an email proposal. That's what I just did. I got a listing signed, I sent it out, he docu-signed it, and we were done. So
Because it's vacant, right?
yeah.
They're out of the country or in a different part of the country.
Yeah, so I would just try and don't let all these excuses start to build up in your head. Like
Right.
you're going to sell yourself on not being able to take listings right now because of what's going on, but you shouldn't do that because it's just not true. Like that's not reality. There's still people that need to move.
Right. Great point. I love that point. Okay, how about for sale by owners?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting one because
We were just talking about this.
Yeah,
yes?
yeah. For sale by owners are having trouble right now because their total number of showings are down, so they're struggling, and they're also more uncertain. Ones that are selling and not also buying, and so their motivation is high. So I've just noticed more opportunity, and that's another market where there's more competition with agents calling them typically, but now there's not. So it's the perfect time to call them, I would say.
And the motivated ones are going to say the same thing. Oh, you're actually working during this. This is
Right.
a good sign.
Right.
It shows your professionalism and dedication. All right, cool. All right. Any other thoughts about for sale by owners?
Yeah, well, just in general, I mean, this applies to all the lead sources really, but when you're talking to people on the phone, which is really the only way you're talking to people now, right? It's
Right.
on the phone. The most important thing is your voice and how you sound. And if you sound good and you're rehearsed and you practice and you have a good skill level, usually it's still hard because you're still competing against other agents. Now it's like, if you sound good and you're on the phone, that's like, you're just the default option. Like,
It's like an unfair advantage.
yeah, there's no reason why someone wouldn't use you if they're motivated to sell their house. So I just think now's the time. And again, it's not exploitive. It's not taking advantage of a bad situation. It's
Right.
just you have to reframe the way you're thinking about this. The fact is, no one could argue the fact that there's someone in the next 60 days that's going to need to move, right?
Right.
There's
Yeah.
a lot actually.
A lot.
In most markets, there's a lot. It's just a matter of who's going to be helping those people. And I think those people will remember you more now than ever because of the fact that
Right.
you have the right mindset, the right attitude. And in general, in times like this, I mean, you're always on stage. People are always kind of watching each other to see how like who's leading and what's going on. But times like this, people are really observing other
Yeah.
people and seeing how they behave.
Absolutely.
And you can really be a leader, not just help someone with a real estate transaction, but you could be a leader in their life by being a calming force now, I would say.
Absolutely. And like we talk about rehearsed, practiced, when you have that confidence, I would call it today would be soothing for them.
Mhm.
Right? It's because, of what's going on.
Sure.
Right? And they want comfort in knowing what's going to happen. All right. Or, at least someone's going to be helping them through this process. No one knows exactly what's going to happen from here forward. Anybody who tells you that is out of their mind because we don't know. I mean, it could be two more weeks, could be, who knows? Could be 2 months, could be longer. Okay? But keeping your momentum is critically important. What about farming activities, which, just listed, just sold, I combined into farming activities. Any of that going on for you right now?
Yes, it definitely is. And that's the area where, again, you're just getting a huge advantage because of the fact that the market is basically empty right now.
Right.
So farming is an area where you're fighting an uphill battle because of the fact that you're trying to build a brand in a certain area or with a particular demographic.
Right.
And now it's just that much easier with less people in the market. And again, there's still people who need to move. One thing that kind of applies to all the different sources
Right.
is that right now, you should be trying to work on your skills a lot because you have more time, right? Like
Right.
if to every agent in the market, you're gonna have more time now than you probably would because you're not driving out to properties for the most part. You're still showing some, but in a lot of markets you can't show properties. So now with that time, you should be developing your skills. I would be role playing and practicing more now than ever because you have that time available.
Listening to the scripts, even audio books and all that kind of stuff too. Role playing is critical right now too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Dan brought up a great point before too. Like knowing your numbers. Like if you're calling your sphere, I mean there are closings happening. well, I know we have this going on, but one just closed on Tuesday of last week in your neighborhood, and you're giving them information, and even if they're not doing anything now, at least they'll be doing, you'll have them lined up for when they are. Okay? And I would say building your pipeline is a huge thing going on right now.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe everything that we're talking about right now is building your pipeline. Just with farming specifically, another great advantage now is that, like I said before, people are really curious about what's going on. Like buyers and sellers or potential buyers and sellers, they'll be really curious about what's happening in the market. And if you're the only person talking to them, you can answer their questions. A lot of them are really wondering, hey, what do you think will happen? And obviously none of us know, but you can at least be a resource for them, provide them some statistics and help guide them to make the right decision.
Absolutely, good stuff. And you be the person that has knowledge about certain things like their neighborhood, which is very important to them. That's why, okay, I'm going to be a company guy here for a second. That's why this is the time where your database, anybody you've talked to, if the newsletters, like for instance, you go to the VAC, you plug them into the newsletters, even corporate, Berkshire Hathaway International, whatever, is going to be talking about these types of things. So they'll be part of the newsletter. And I know a lot of you do not have your CRMs organized. It's the perfect time to get in there, make sure everybody's set up. Also, I like Market Watch. It's a quick CMA, boom, and it goes out automatically once you set them out. So if you don't have everybody in there set up, you talk to somebody while you're talking to them, you can be set them up and go to the next one and go to the next one and so forth, right?
Yeah,
It'd be a great thing to do right now.
Yeah,
Be organized. I know your CRM's organized.
Yeah,
because it's
very
analytical.
very detailed.
Exactly. All right, so yes.
What do you tell the sellers your marketing strategy is, being that car gave no face-to-face contact?
Okay, so that's California.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different, but I could speak to it a little bit. You could advise them on listing now versus later. I would still get contract signed, right? There's no reason to not. If you have a seller who's motivated and is ready to hire you, you should still be getting that listing contract signed now.
Right.
Whether you start now or post date it in your specific market, you could probably give them advice on what's best for that. I don't know. You have any thoughts on that?
Well, that, and if somebody wants to list, because you can still do virtual showings, you can do different things, but in California they have said no face-to-face, no showings, no open houses, no meetings. So everything Dan mentioned, if you can do that via have them sign, what do you call that? DocuSign, and do that, definitely.
And I've had buyers, just so you know, reach out to me asking if they could virtual tour properties, like the buyers that I have working right now. So you can let your sellers know that. Again, it depends on the market. I don't know what's going on in different markets, but at least here, I'd be telling my sellers, there's still the buyers that we have, they're just going to be asking to virtual tour the house first, or if the house is vacant, well, then there's no issue, right?
Yeah, and in California, I know it's getting a little tricky because a lot of buyers, and I think it's smart, even though it's really, they're thinking, well, I have less competition now because not everybody's going to follow those rules, but they should. Okay, but so just be careful. But if you already have pictures and you already have video of the house, you can definitely do the virtual stuff and set that up. If you don't, different story.
Yeah, real estate was already kind of moving in that direction, the virtual direction, before all of this happened. So,
which is another great tool. If you need to work on certain tools, it's the perfect time to learn them.
Yep.
Or like if you're not good at social media, it's the perfect time to learn it.
Yep.
Which is our next topic.
Yep.
Social media. Our last one about prospecting is social media. I like social media is like filling the funnel, and then eventually you have people that you're going to talk to. Right.
Yeah.
So what's your focus on social media?
I think that's a good paradigm of thinking about it. The number one rule here would be you shouldn't be being negative on social media or complaining or getting involved in all the hoopla and the negativity. That's what I would definitely not do.
Right.
I would, if there's going to be any message on social media, it definitely needs to be positive. Again, not rose-colored glasses, everything will be fine, because we have a serious problem right now. No one would argue that.
Right.
But you should be kind of the beacon that people are looking to. I think real estate agents right now, just from an economic perspective, we really have an opportunity to help people and to kind of keep the wheels turning a little bit here if we're doing our job right. My message on social media would be positive overall. I would be using video. I wouldn't be writing long posts all the time because there's just not as much engagement with that. I would be recommending to use video as much as possible, for sure.
Absolutely. Like I did Sunday, I went down to the Strip, and don't recommend that for everybody, but little things just to let people know what you're doing, where you are. I thought it was interesting because I had never been on the Strip with basically nobody on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, stay positive. Don't get into the coronavirus posts and all that different stuff because really, you're using social media for today to make people feel comfortable. Okay. There's plenty. If you want to see what could possibly go wrong, all you got to do is turn the news on.
Yeah.
They're already hearing that. They don't need to hear that from you, right?
Yeah, completely agree. And then to your point before, the ultimate goal with social media should be some type of deeper relationship with a phone call or a face-to-face visit once that is okay again. Because it's a channel that helps you get to that. It's not the end goal. It's just a channel that helps you get to those things. So just keep in mind, if you're interacting with people on social media, one thing I would be trying to do is get people's phone numbers if you don't have their phone number. Just do that as soon as possible and try and get to that next level of relationship equity where you're actually more of a friend than just some random person on social media.
Yeah. And when they're home all day, they like to have conversations.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because people are home. I mean, I just talked to one agent in California. They basically have been home for 4 days straight now with a few kids and so forth. And that's great. You know, you're going to really figure out how much you love your family, which you should.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I am not downplaying this situation because it is definitely serious. The thing I was going to mention about social media is a lot of you, and I used to say the same thing. Oh, video's not me. Oh, I'm going to tell you right now, you have a tremendous opportunity to become comfortable using video. Once you do a couple, you feel a lot more comfortable doing them. And the great thing about video is, think about this. If I'm going to be prospecting just listed, just sold, or expires, or whatever, as I'm prospecting them and putting them into my system, I'm also going to be sending them friend requests and connections on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and all that stuff. Because with video, it's like they're getting to know me, all right? And then when they get to know me, they're more comfortable with me, and then the chances of them using me and referring me go up. Video is crazy good, how well it works.
Yeah, and if you're worried about it, if you're worried about not being good with video, just keep in mind that the authenticity is actually what helps connect with video. Like the little imperfections and my face is sunburned right now because I was out in the sun yesterday and I'm not, that's what people like. That's what makes people connect on video is the little imperfections and not having an exact script or maybe going off a little bit here and there. Don't be worried about that stuff because that's what actually works.
Yeah, because people know that they make mistakes when they talk, and when they see you doing it live and it's raw, they respect you even more because most people, it's almost like public speaking, right? Public speaking, most people would rather do anything than be in public speaking. But I'm gonna tell you, once you do it a few times, like the videos, it becomes a lot easier. So use this time maybe to do something that you're currently not comfortable doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, great advice.
Any final thoughts?
No, now is just, I would say, the time to talk to people. With all the different sources of leads that we talked about with prospecting, I've noticed that my contact rate is double what it normally is. So for this amount of time prospecting, everyone's home. Everyone's home and everyone's bored. So now it's just a very easy time to talk to people. You should be doing it from an ethical standpoint, to be checking in on people you haven't talked to in a while. And it's also great for your business, so why not do both? And the overall message I would say is just try and turn off the news as much as possible. Yeah. Try and stay away from the negativity. People need you to be a leader right now, and that's the way to do it, especially because the economic impact of this will probably be more severe than really the health impact to a lot of people here.
Right.
So that's all of our jobs, is to help with that and to try and keep things going as much as possible. So.
Yeah, and I like what you said earlier about it's kind of like combining the golden rule with proper business. It's the perfect time to do that, and they'll remember it. And once again, you'll finish your pipeline, you'll fill your pipeline, so when this does loosen up, you can get right back to doing what you do, list and sell.
Yep.
Thanks for your time, folks. It's been awesome. Thanks, Dan. I would give him a handshake, but we can't do that right now.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yep.